is that gym culture is one of the biggest determinants of safety in any kind of dojo experience you might have. Um, there's a sense in which all of us have an idea of gym culture. We all know it's a real thing. Think about the times you've gone traveling. You go to a different gym and you work out in a new dojo. You've all had that experience where the first couple of days everything's run a little differently. The attitude might seem different to what you're used to. And it typically takes us a couple of days, sometimes even weeks, to adapt to a new gym culture. So we've all had that experience. You know gym culture is a real thing. But the interesting question, of course, is how does it influence safety when you're training? My point is that gym culture, along with the idea that there are a small set of very dangerous moves, gym culture is probably the second biggest determinant of the overall safety of the training experiences that you'll have. Now, it's one thing to say or just talk about gym culture, but it doesn't really help much. You'll hear people say, this culture is different from that culture, or I have a culture of safety. But these are just words thrown around. We need to actually break down what is gym culture and how does it pertain to the idea of safety in the dojo. Well, let's understand that gym culture has three major components built into it. And these three components, unfortunately, are mutually exclusive. What are these three components? Well, you obviously have the idea of safety. Everyone's looking for a safe training experience. The other is skill development. You want to build up the skills of jiu-jitsu and over time acquire those skills so that you can perform better. And thirdly, you have competitive success or competition success. Now, when I say competition, that doesn't necessarily mean you go out into actual competitions. It might refer to, for example, to the sparring element in class. I have many students who've never competed in their lives, but they're extraordinarily tough in the dojo and they can absolutely go toe-to-toe with even world champions within the gym in sparring. So competition success applies not only to competition out there in the competitive circuit, but also to sparring inside the dojo, which is, of course, the more common occurrence. So your gym culture will ultimately be built up of these three components that form a triad: safety, skill development, and competition success or competitive success. Please understand right from the start that these three push this triad in different directions. If I put 100% of my emphasis in a dojo on safety, that can only be done to the detriment of skill development and competition success. Think about it. The safest workout of all would just be to allow no contact in the gym. Just have everyone do some very safe, basic solo drills where they don't even touch each other. They just roll around on the floor and do some shrimping and bridging, etc. That would be a very, very safe gym environment, almost no injuries. But of course, no one would ever develop any serious skills, and certainly no one would ever win any competitions or do well in sparring. It would be the classic kind of McDojo situation. Tremendous safety record, but at the price of any kind of skill acquisition or competition success. If, on the other hand, I put a premium on skill development and everything was about acquiring new skills, well, now you'd have to start taking some risks with safety. Think about a situation where you introduce a new submission hold into a gym. When it's first introduced, that's when safety starts to suffer. Say, for example, a gym never incorporated leg locks, and then suddenly they incorporated a leg lock program into the gym. The first 6 months would probably be the roughest 6 months because everyone's acquiring new skills. No one knows how to manage those skills yet. And as a result, injury rates would probably be higher than usual during that period of new skill acquisition. In addition, your competition success would probably go down because when you first start learning new skills, you haven't mastered them. There's a period where your ability to compete using those new skills actually diminishes because you're struggling to apply these newly acquired skills. You're certainly not a master of them yet. That's going to take time. And so as you put more and more emphasis on skill development, safety starts to fall and competition success starts to fall. If I put a premium on competition success, that's going to require very hard sparring on a regular basis so that everyone develops sufficient endurance, competitive drive and will, mental toughness. So safety is going to have to go down as you emphasize harder and harder sparring, and you incorporate more and more sparring into 7 days a week. Safety is definitely going to take a hit. In addition, skill development is going to take a hit, because whenever you have two people involved in a situation where they're only concerned with who wins and who loses, what's the first thing that's going to happen? You're going to use only your best moves. If you just want to win, and that's all you want to do, you're only going to use your best moves. And so you're going to run into plateaus where you master 3 or 4 moves and you just use those to win every time you go out to compete. And as a result, skill acquisition falls, and you just end up hitting a competition plateau, and that's the game for the rest of your life. And so you can see very clearly that these 3 elements of the triad of gym culture, safety, skill development, and competition success, work against each other. The more you emphasize one, the more you must sacrifice the other 2. There's no getting around that. Now, with that in mind, every gym culture that you experience is going to be some kind of compromise or mean between those 3 elements of the triad: safety, skill development, and competition success. The big question is, where are we going to set that mean? What will become the golden mean between those 3 elements? And that is a fascinating question which only you can answer based upon whether you're the operator of a dojo or a school, or a participant, a student within it. Where you set that compromise between those 3 elements is a deeply personal choice. What's your vision in the sport? What do you prioritize? It will be different in different scenarios. I'll give you some examples of my own experience. I'm mostly known for running cutting-edge competition classes that produce athletes who perform at a world championship level. In competition classes, I will emphasize less safety. I will put a huge emphasis on skill development over time. And of course, as competitions come closer, there will be more emphasis on competition success and getting people ready for a given rule set and for the mental and physical toughness required to excel in those competitions. It's a balancing act, and how you find that balance will depend on what you're trying to achieve. For example, in a beginner's class, I think we'd all agree it's probably wise to put a heavier emphasis on safety and skill development at the expense of competition success. As you deal with a more advanced class, then you probably want to put most of your emphasis on skill development. And as a result, there'll be some reduction in safety, and for periods of time, some reduction in competition success. If you have a competitive team getting ready for a given championship or what have you, then of course, most of the emphasis will be on competition success at the expense of skill development and safety. Now, there's things that you can do even in a highly competitive dojo where you really are putting most of the emphasis on competition success and skill development to emphasize safety. And even in a class where the primary emphasis is on competition success, even then safety can't be ignored. You can't just go like kamikazes at each other, because you're all going to be injured. And if you're injured, it's going to be hard to be successful in competition. So it's not like we can ever just dismiss any one of those 3 elements. You can't just run a competition class at such a crazy breakneck pace that you just ignore safety. You're going to have a team full of cripples in a very short period of time. So ultimately, our goal in building gym culture is to find a satisfactory compromise or golden mean between these 3 elements of gym culture. As I said, that will depend upon what your goals are. Please understand that even if you are in a gym environment where one of these is being emphasized more than the others, and you as an individual student want to change things and emphasize a different element of this triad, you can do so. So for example, if I'm running a beginner's class, And there's a small group of students who they're beginners, but maybe they come from another grappling style. They were wrestlers or judo players earlier. I might match them in a class of 30 people. I might take 4 of them who are a little more experienced and have them be a little more competitive in the corner amongst each other, separated from the other true beginners in the class. There's always tricks you can do in this respect. I do advocate the use of separation. Even within one dojo, you can have separated classes, beginner classes, advanced classes, and competition classes. And in one dojo, you can have 3 different cultures based on different balancings or jugglings of these 3 elements of the triad. So your beginner class might emphasize safety more at the expense of the other 2. Your advanced class might emphasize skill development more than the other 2, and your competition class will emphasize competition success over the other 2. So even within one dojo, different classes can be balanced differently. Once you understand the idea of this essential triad that builds gym culture, and how all gym culture is just an attempt to balance those 3 disparate competing elements of the triad of gym culture, and that your task is to find some kind of golden mean, you will be able to control the culture within your class, among your friends, if you're training in a more local environment in your backyard or what have you. Understanding this triangle between safety, skill development, and competition success, and learning to find that golden mean between those 3 competing elements is the key to building a successful, workable gym culture.